happened at that time. You've connected an emotional signature to that moment. And every time that moment comes back, the emotion comes flooding back. And they want to live. They keep pulling at you these thoughts. I want to live. But when you stop them, when you no longer give them the attention that they cry for, when you no longer hear them screaming like crickets in the night, you don't know where they are. You just know the crickets are out there because you can hear them. When you can no longer focus on them as the priority in your meditations, then that's when that space that you speak about opens up. And that is the direct area code to God.
Mm, amazing. Amazing. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying this conversation. Moving on to the next question. You know, they say technology emulates the technology that we use, the computer, the phone, all of this stuff emulates the technology that we have built inside of us. So I want people to understand spirituality, and maybe by describing it in a technological way, they can understand it better. Just like the whole concept of Wi-Fi and downloading. Everybody says, I got to download it. It helps everybody to understand how we communicate with that prime source or the quantum universe. So let's use technology real quick for a second. So they say an IP address, this was it, an IP address is a unique address that identifies a device on the internet or the local network. An IP address allows two devices, the sender and the recipient of the internet communication, to find and exchange info with each other. So if we're computers, biological computers, and we have IP addresses, how does my IP address from a technological way identify, let's say my mother passed away, I want to communicate with her. How does my IP address identify or communicate with her IP address because she's on another network, but I can't see her, but I want to communicate with her?
Well, it's pretty interesting. First of all, you know that definition of an IP address is pretty accurate as to what we are experiencing in the third dimension in this corporeal avatar body, in my personal opinion. And so, you know, when you look at the as above, so below from the ancient Kemetic principles, and you begin to realize something interesting, that we're experiencing in this life, in this avatar body, what the universe is doing as a whole. And what I mean by that is this: the universe itself is a giant mind, in my opinion, and we have a mind in our avatar body. And so we're just a fractal of the whole. We're a smaller picture of what really is going on. And so if you look at the human mind, it's encased in darkness. It doesn't know anything. It can't tell anything that's going on the outside, but it has friends: hearing, smell, sight, touch, right? All your sensory perception. And so the brain talks to its friends and say, hey, friends, I need to know what's going on out there. Please go out and collect me some information, collect me some data. So the friends go out, touch, smell, hearing, sight, and so forth. They go out and they collect data. Now, the friends themselves can't decipher the data. They're collecting the information, but they don't have the capability to discern it. They bring it back to the brain. The brain says, thanks for the data. The brain sorts it all out in a few microseconds and then projects a hologram as to what it believes is going on outside. We navigate through that hologram based on that projection from data collected by sensory perception. Okay. And so, yeah, you look at this and you see, wow, well, what does that mean? Well, I believe that there's one radio station. If you look at the divine universal consciousness as a radio station in your neighborhood, it's broadcasting out multiple frequencies, multiple radio stations. I'm 99.1. That's my IP address. You're 99.2. Dr. Phil is 99.3, and so forth and so on. Consider those your IP addresses. You're able to pick up a dot number frequency coming from that radio station. Your avatar body is specifically tuned to pick up a particular portion of the frequency, giving us the illusion of individuality. When in true reality, there is no individual. We are all one, experiencing life subjectively from different perspectives, because we all are slightly tuned to a dot point number of a frequency that gives us the illusion of being separated. But separation is also an illusion. And so I believe that we are all the same entity walking in the flesh, trying to decipher what it's like to be Billy Carson, Dr. Phil Valentine, you, Richard, even a blade of grass, even a rock. And all of us, you said two-way transmission on the IP address, are all collecting data like our 5 sensory perception is for the brain. We are the sensory perception in the avatar body. It's collecting data by living the life and then transmitting it back to a higher dimension, to your higher self. Your higher self is in a higher dimension. And so I believe that's the mode of communication that's going on, that we're literally on a data collection mission and we're transmitting it back to source. That's how I feel it's operating.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. The IP address in our university is the pineal, the epiphysis dorsi. Your IP address is your own individual epiphysis dorsi. It's your broadcast and receiver for higher consciousness vibrations. The communicating with your mother, for example, is not a energy that can be spoken into third density, because third density is an impediment. And what I mean is that we, as the avatars of God, are existing in a compression zone of 1,600 pounds per square inch. It's as if you were, for instance, to go down about 10 miles or 5 to 6 miles under the ocean, say in the trench, in the Pacific Trench. The pressure of what's above you is going to bear down. The water pressure is going to bear down on you based upon that. Well, as we as souls, spirits, came into this density that we see, this water density that we call our atmosphere, it is holding us together. But we did not communicate with the voice. The vocal part of us only became more sophisticated in for the last maybe 50,000 years. Our communication was pineal to pineal, brainwave frequency to brainwave frequency. That's why our ancestors in Kemet and the Kemet-U, they always wrote in pictures, because you dream in pictures, you think in pictures when you are calling memories and so forth. There was always some kind of picture that comes to match. Say, for instance, you have a nightmare. The nightmare is coming to match a particular feeling or perception. So you draw from the bank of experiences, maybe something that you saw on television and so forth, and that brings you your nightmare. It connects with that particular vision of what you've had for yourself. So understanding that the vocal cords right now are what we just, this is the newly developed way of communicating. Our old way of communicating was always mind to mind, and we did so in pictures, which again is, if you were to do a meditation on some, on say the, what they call, what is the one that was in Seti's, in Pepe's sarcophagus, the codes that you see. If you were to meditate on the Medunecha, you would begin to pick up the one who was actually drawing and putting those figures together, because the brain communicates in pictures. And so you can actually get in contact with mom, but you have to silence the thought process. The thought process is of third density. If that gets in the way, it brings the emotions that match that particular thought density to this plane. So you have to lose the particular figurations of thought and get into the space as spoken about earlier, get into that null zone. And that's where the communication takes place. That's where there's no longer any impediments to what you imagine. Remember, that's your emotional body. Your emotional body is necessary for not only procreation, but for communication. And instead of it being emoted so that the body begins to feel and goes through this intense feeling that the emotion gives you, you then channel that emotional energy outward and call upon your mother, and she'll talk to you in your sleep.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely powerful, man. I mean, you two are titans, man. I mean, the way y'all breaking these quantum perspectives down. Wow. Moving on, we're gonna keep moving. We're gonna go fast with this. We're not gonna just dwell on one thing. We're gonna keep it moving. In terms of divine thoughts, this is something I've noticed. People will read something, they will read ancient texts, they will believe it. They will say, damn, we gods, y'all. We are ancient gods. We are. A lot of people will say, I am God having a human experience, and they will believe that.
Mhm.
But when it comes time to using that thought to imagine something in a human event, like let's say, since I'm God having a human experience, I'm Brother Rich, I'm gonna have 100,000 viewers watching my show.
Mhm.
They can't do that. They won't do that. It won't penetrate human events. They believe it in some type of ambiguous, I don't know if that's the right word, but some type of multi-dimensional way of thinking. They believe, they know I am God in a multi-dimensional way of thinking. But when it comes time to human events, I'm God so I could do this. I'm God so I could do that. I'm divine so I'm going to have the most magnificent child or the magnificent wife. They don't believe that. It ends there. It stops there. It stops there. So talk to me about us tapping into that God frequency,
Yeah.
but when we use the technology of imagination, we don't use that. We can't use it. There's a blockage that occurs when we try to use that technology to use it for human events. You got to explain this to me.
Wow, another great question, but you hit it on the head, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
One thing is when a person hears the knowledge and the wisdom, they get that gnosis and that understanding, and then they begin to, oh wow, I believe I'm God walking in the flesh. I'm a fractal of that power. The same divine spark that created everything that exists in the entire universe is in every atom inside of my body, thereby meaning that power is imbued inside of me. How do I tap into it? And so they begin to hear the teachings and hear the knowledge and read. I'm losing my God power now. Thought by thought, by thought, by thought, by thought, by word, my God power is now shrinking. And so another thing that happens is if you don't check yourself, you stay in that frequency for the rest of the day, maybe even longer than that. And everywhere you go, everything is now manifesting darkness. So you're attracting darkness, low vibrational stuff. One problem turns into 10 problems. 10 problems turn into 100 problems. Things you didn't even perceive were going to come and hit you. Boom, here they come. You have to be able to check yourself. I stopped myself and said, wait a minute, hold on. Hold on a second. Let me check myself. This waitress could be having a bad day. The cook could be having a bad day. The dishwasher could be having a bad day. My life is great. So at the end of the day, I can always get up and go somewhere else and have me another fresh meal somewhere else. At the end of the day, my life is great. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm safe. Matter of fact, I left a full tip. I got up and I walked out of there in a gratitude mindset. And guess what? As soon as I left out of there, I got a phone call about a business thing I was working on, and it all closed and went through. I had actually didn't even think about that deal anymore because it sounded like it wasn't going to happen. The people were talking about, well, we got to talk more about this and that, whatever. I get the phone call. I'm on the way home. So it's a done deal. I'm like, oh my God, this is too easy. So it's all about the mindset and getting in that right frame of mind. And those are the things you're walking in. You're walking in that high frequency. And when you're walking in that, that's what walking in your God power is and commanding things into existence. It has nothing to do with walking around thinking, man, I'm going to create this thing. This has to happen for me because I'm a God. That's not the right mindset. It's all about practicing the finer details of the things that make you a God, a true God. And when you practice that stuff, then the other stuff is a side effect. The abundance is a side effect. Manifestations are all a side effect of you walking in that consciousness.
Excellent. I want to take it from the point where ego essentially steps in. At our school, we talk about ego, and we use it very sparingly because it becomes an entity unto itself. We no longer say that we do not say that this is us. We change the word ego to the adverse use of free will. Free will was actually what we exude in every act that we deal with, however we wish to behave, whatever it is that we wish to do, and so forth. So what we say, instead of saying ego so that it becomes almost like a curse or something that you're afflicted with like a virus, we say that when you examine yourself and you begin to understand how you're thinking and how you apply your free will, to the behavior patterns that you are dealing with at this point. Like you said at the restaurant, you did an excellent job by seeing, instead of you yelling and screaming, what you did was you took into consideration that they were trying to take your power, that your
Mhm.
power was being etched away from you, and you could almost feel it like a lack, the way alcohol takes away your discernment and so forth. So what you did was essentially, instead of your free will, because you had the will to choose and yell and scream and so forth, you took that moment to use your free will towards making that point an empowering point. What did you find out about yourself? That you're greater than any moment that could attack you. You're greater than any moment that you feel could subsume that power that you know you exist, and you did not commit. That moment was trying to be your kryptonite.
Yeah.
That's
For real.
exact. Yeah.
It was trying
Yeah.
to be your kryptonite, but then you
Yeah.
said no, because whatever that is not stronger than I am.
Mm.
You
Oh
see.
man.
So what you are dealing with at this particular time is, how do you exercise free will so that you free yourself from whatever will challenge you?
Mhm. Mm.
You see?
I like that.
I'm
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm glad, Dr. Valentine. I'm not just, and I want the people to understand this. I'm not just here talking to get views. I'm learning as I'm asking questions, and that's the reasons why I come with the questions that I ask, is to learn.
Great questions, by the way.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you,
No.
thank you.
No.
I want to say this before I ask the next one.
Mhm.
I just learned from that question I asked. I'm gonna tell you something. I believe I got a test. You talked to Dr. Valentine about getting tested, and I don't think I passed the other day. I'm not gonna say what it was, but I kind of didn't pass. So I'm gonna use Billy example. Billy, I'm gonna learn from you.
Mm.
And next time I get presented with something like that, I'm gonna redirect my perspective and my outlook on it, and I'm gonna try to pass it, and I look at it from an ego perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that you said that, Billy, and I'm glad that Dr. Valentine gave the response he gave, and I'm look forward to learning from that, and I know everybody else is as well. But I'm gonna look forward to learning from everything that happens to me in my life and pass every test. And with that being said, the next question, one of the biggest issues that we face in the world today is childhood trauma or past trauma. And one of the things about past trauma or childhood trauma is that the people will tell you, you can't change it. Leave it alone. You got to move on. You can't change it. What I want to do tonight is I want to approach it from a quantum perspective, as we've been doing with the whole show. That's what makes the whole show great. So we're approaching childhood trauma or past trauma from a quantum perspective. So if you view it from a quantum perspective, you understand that if I got a flat tire when it happened, I may be sad, but 10 days later, I may look at it and laugh. So if I look at it and laugh 10 days later, I'm no longer viewing the past as something bad. It no longer has a hold on me, because in the future, I looked at it as some past. Now in the future, I could also look at it as a devastating event that triggered more bad things that happened to me. So in that future event, I could look at it from two perspectives: as a laughable event, or as something that was a trigger for just a snowball effect for bad things that continue to happen to me. So those two perspectives in the future could change that past, but they tell us you can't change that past. But if I view it from a different perspective, it impacts the future or the present in a different manner. So talk to me about viewing the past in a quantum way and changing this perspective in the past. And I want to use this example. Let's say, it maybe sound ridiculous to you, but I want to use this example. Let's say Michael Jackson, Joe Jackson abused him. Let's say Michael, when he got older, and he said, damn, I got abused. And instead of saying I got abused, Michael said, listen, that was an extreme preparation to be one of the greatest souls that ever walked the face of the earth, which he is. Michael was one of the, Michael Jackson? Everybody know Michael Jackson. So what if Michael viewed his childhood it was extreme, but it had to prepare me for an extreme future, because I was going to be an extreme deity to exist on this earth. So talk to me about changing the past with your current perspective, which they say we can't because the past is concrete.
Well, it's pretty interesting. Again, another phenomenal question. I mean, you got the passion going tonight, Rich.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lit up, and the patterns in the brain dictate what's wrong with you. He saw a trauma pattern. He said, but in my case, I developed something called PTG, where most people develop PTSD. I said, well, what's PTG? He said, I developed something called post-traumatic growth. And so what happened was, where a lot of people, those things happen to them, and they always look back on them and reflect on them and let them eat them up on the inside. I look back on those things, but I let them motivate me to be better, to do better, to find better ways, to learn how to play and navigate through the matrix, to find other ways to maneuver and take care of myself and my family in better ways, and to not never be in that situation again. And so it's two different perspectives and two different ways of seeing the problem that happened in the past. I analyze it from a perspective, how can this make me better? They analyze it from a perspective as, this is my life and I succumb to it. Right. And this is going to control me until the day that I die. And so their cellular memory and their conscious memory are all fighting in the ancient times of their own past. And they have become a prisoner of the past. And to fix that problem, you need to do the shadow work. You have to begin to work on yourself. You got to spend time doing the things that help you to free yourself from that mental prison and that cellular prison. And a lot of them will be considered biohacking in some ways. A lot of meditation, self-help books, psychotherapists. People are afraid to go see psychotherapists and so forth. I'm not afraid. Go see a psychotherapist. Brain training through NeuroOptimal. This is a phenomenal way to help the mind. Do trauma release exercises. There's trauma release exercises. We taught one in the workshop we just did from a licensed trauma release specialist that was created by an MD, a real doctor. All these things you can begin to work on yourself and try to work the trauma out of your body, and then start focusing on a better future for yourself. One thing that I did, again, another thing, just subconsciously, my book, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke. I dedicated that book to my father. He was an alcoholic, a drug addict. He died, about 5 years ago now as a result of a police beating. But why would I dedicate a book to him? Well, he's the one who forced me to start doing book reports at an early age. So without him forcing me to do those book reports, I might not have become as astute as I did and have retention of information as I did, starting from a very young age, which allowed me to become the person that I am today. Whereas another person would have said, man, that guy was just a drunk and an alcoholic, was a bum. He never came home. He had babies out on the street and blah, 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 blah. I couldn't stand him. Hey, he was suffering with a certain level of depression. His mother died when he was 16. His dad left the house when he was 5, said he was going out for a pack of cigarettes and never came home. So he ended up getting very depressed and turned to drugs and alcohol. I had to have the understanding for that. I had to have the compassion and the empathy for that. So instead of letting that past traumatic experiences of growing up in that condition, in that situation, destroy me and tear me down, I took another step even above. Let me dedicate this book to my dad. My other book I dedicated to my mom, because she's the first person that told me about, she didn't call them aliens. She called them advanced beings visiting Earth. She told me that in 1978. All right, 1978. She told me to go to Peru. That's why when I went to Peru, which is a big part of that book, I dedicated that book to my mom, because before aliens was on TV, before UFOs and all this other stuff was on TV, we had 4 channels back then, and mostly it was just news. And at 12 o'clock midnight, you got the white snow. It wasn't nothing to watch. And she told me about this, and so she had some type of foreknowledge or whatever. But again, she allowed us to grow up in those conditions. I could have hated her. I could have been angry at her. So you have to rise above your prior self. You have to rise above the things that have tried to hold you back and keep you down and put you in situations that you think, this is why my life is this way, and this is why my life, that puts you in the mindset of victimhood, that victimhood mindset. They did this to me, and this is why I'm like this, and they did that, and the man is holding me back and all. That's all victimhood. You got to get out of the victimhood mindset. You got to shift your mind into growth mindset. Okay, this happened here. This was bad. Work on myself, try to fix myself. The second thing is forgive yourself. Don't wait on some outside source to come and forgive you. You forgive yourself. You forgive others. And then you bless them. You bless yourself. And then you move on and grow from that and figure out what good things can you take out of the situation, if any. What can I use to build and grow on that? And you focus on the good things and leave the past in the past.
Excellent. Excellent. I think that each one of us who have been cast upon the path, and like yourself, if you look at all the superhero stories, each one of them had trauma before it released their powers to them. And the trauma, or the crucible as I call it, which is what you suffered through, I did to myself. My grandfather was very abusive. For punishment, I had to kneel on a broomstick, if you understand what that's about. Things of that nature. Back in those days, they didn't know anything, because when I heard from my mother when I was coming up, because I had to leave to my family's in Trinidad, and so what I found out from my mother, who told me, because she was the griot of the family, she told me that my grandfather used to be tied to the bed by his father, and was not allowed to eat if he said or did the wrong thing, that type of thing. So trauma gets handed down. But the one thing that we have to understand is that the trauma is calculated and cataloged in the thought. That trauma is either a crucible that releases the superhero or creates the supervillain. And we have to choose at that point the higher part of ourselves, because 9 times out of 10, when we signed that contract to come back into the avatar, so that we become the feedback mechanism to God itself, so that God knows essentially itself through our feedback, which is through our emotional feedback, that relay system that we've become to that intelligence that's above us. When we are feeding back our experiences, we have a choice, and that's the thing that the Most High doesn't have. The Most High has to stay the Most High. But when the Most High becomes us, we deal with choices. And those experiences that we beam back to the Most High is based upon what it is we choose to become when the crucible hits us. Your crucible made you who you are, Billy. And Billy, I look at you and I look at your eyes, focus into your eyes, and you'll see that you have what is known as the lower sampaku. It means that the sclera beneath your eyes, beneath your pupils, are white underneath. That's the sign of a sage.
Wow.
Because what is happening is your so-called third eye, which we call the first eye, is pulling the dual eyes up towards the pyramid is there in your forehead, and the 2 eyes are the base of the pyramid. And so you see things from a very high spiritual perspective. You are destined to be that, you see. And so when we learn that thought is the calculus for what we become, and when we learn that our thoughts carry the pain, when we understand and understand that when those thoughts become our what we call our petty tyrant, the petty tyrant that's spoken about in Don Juan, that petty tyrant whips the hell out of us, beats us down, but then it either crushes that coal into a diamond, or it crushes it into the powder, and you essentially become this diffused serial killer, or somebody who's blaming everybody else for your trauma. You see. So I know that once you understand that your thoughts can be your teacher or your tyrant, it depends on the choices that you make when you are thinking the thoughts about that trauma. You see, the society wants you to continue to feel traumatic about your own experiences. That's why they create these psychologists and psychiatrists. They want to hear more about it. Keep bringing your pain out. That means that you're going to face it. No, sometimes the brain is created in such a way to make sure that you don't have to deal with that and you can go on with your life. But most people don't know how to do that. They'll go to religion, or they go to a philosophy and so forth. They're diverting themselves from facing that issue within themselves. It only grows. Whatever it is that you do not do to address it directly, it uses whatever you think that you're going to use to do it as a feed to grow bigger, and comes back to you much more much more concentrated and much more deadly. So I recommend, and first of all, I commend you too for all of what have you've done and what have you've accomplished in holding on to the minds and hearts of people who trust you. That's the thing that you all have
Yeah.
created within your whole sphere of influence, trust.
Mm.
And you have to understand that I cherished my reputation, even though it was, it ain't the best of the best. I'm a jackass and an asshole from when I was young too. But once you understand that essentially it's a crucible that you grow into, and that you're here to serve, you don't use this intelligence. You can become, they're telling us how to use our intelligence in TV shows like, the what is it, Empire and everything. Why we got to use our intelligence to prey upon our own people instead of pray for our people,
right?
To uplift them.
Mm.
So, what I would say to you, beloved brothers, keep doing what you're doing as an elder. I'm in my 70s now, and I'm looking down and I'm saying, well, what the hell is going to happen with all this? Well, I'm glad to say that you guys got hold of the torch and you all are taking it forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I want to hurry up. I'm going to move to this next question because we're moving at a fast rate tonight.
Yeah.
I heard a black woman the other day, probably about 2 weeks ago. She was crying. I don't know the gentleman's name from Memphis. There was a gentleman who recently got killed by the police. It was all over do any of you know the name Nichols? Or I don't want to.
By the four black cops, by the four.
Yeah, by the four. I don't want to mispronounce his name, dude. Tyree Nichols, something like that.
I think.
I apologize for not knowing his name and mentioning him, but yeah. So she was crying about the situation, and she was saying, "God, why does God like? It's a hell of an experience being black in this realm. Like, if you're black, you're just like, God damn, when does it end? Generation after, like Billy just talked about." His father being killed by police. Yeah. Billy know what I'm talking about, and I'm sorry to bring that up, Billy. But it's like when does this end? So I was thinking I was trying to think from a quantum perspective and not from a reactionary, angry perspective. And I had the thought. I said, if they, just being metaphysical myself, and they say we're a walking universe, and there's a universe inside of us. If ourselves are sentient. And sentient means being able to perceive or feel things. And we treat our body the way we do. We don't look at ourselves as being sentient. We abuse our bodies. And our cells are probably screaming, please stop this shit. Why are you doing this again? Why are you doing that again? Oh my God, this shit is crazy. Why is God treating us like this? So I'm thinking to myself, maybe God, because this is supposed to be an illusion. This is Maya. The ancients had many names for this realm. It's not supposed to be real. Maybe God looks at us. We're screaming, God, I'm black. Why do you treat black people like this? God's like, this is an illusion, nigga. I'm not concentrating on that. We treat ourselves a certain way in our body. Maybe God treats us the same way.
You sound right. I'm telling you. So God turned and said, this is an illusion, nigga. What you crying for?
Talk to me about God treating us the same way we treat ourselves.
I'll answer this one, then I gotta gracefully bow out.
Yes, sir.
So that's too funny. There's an old parable in the Bible, and I'm an expert on this Bible. I read everything. I probably read that book over 100 times. But there's a parable in the Bible where Jesus is out talking to his disciples, and a few other people had locally gathered by him. And there's some old structures a few feet away, kind of across the street, and some women are walking by. It's a very windy and gusty day. As they're walking by these dilapidated structures, the wind is blowing. Some stones from the top of this building fall and crush the women while they're walking by. The first thing the disciples said, the same thing this lady said, oh my goodness, why would God